Okay, today we are going to talk about writing expressions. By now you should have already learned what an expression is and kind of done the vocabulary for both expression, equations, and inequalities. But we're going to begin with writing expressions. It's very simple. It's just taking a variable and an operator and a constant and putting it into expression form compared to word form. What you see here is word form, and we are going to put this word form into an expression form, or into an algebraic expression. So, right now, before you begin, you should have this writing expression practice 211. You should, of course, have a copy of your clue words. This is huge and very important for you when you're writing equations and expressions. And then you should also have this little guy right here, because we are going to talk about one of these main things on here, which is called distributive properties. So once you have all of these, we can begin. So I'm going to always keep my little clue words right next to me, so when I'm writing expressions or equations, I have them so I don't make any mistakes. So we're going to go through and we're going to slowly take our time and discuss each one so you understand what you're doing. You have done this already in project time, so this should be pretty familiar to you, but I know we forget sometimes. So let's start with number 1. On number 1, it says 12 more than x. Okay, well, we know that we're dealing with x, so let's put x there. I always like to begin our expressions with our variables. So in this case, they give us, thank goodness, they give us our variable instead of asking us for the unknown. And it says, okay, 12 more than x. Okay, well, let's look over here and see if we can find more than or anything like that. So, well, more, that's going to be adding, so we're going to be doing addition here. So it's more than 12. 12 more than x. Now, if you notice, like I said, we normally write the variable first. But in this case, when it says more than, if you look at your keywords here, we know that this is more, which is addition, so we can put addition there. But if you look at than, okay, that is to reverse the order, which means we need to change this to round to 12 plus x. That would be the only time that you put it in that order, okay, is if it has the than word, because that means you're reversing the order. So let's go to the next one, number 2. X is less than, okay, here we go again, less than 36. Well, here it was 12 was more than, so it's going to be x is less than, well, less than, here's the less, okay, so we know it's minus, and then that means, so we can do less than 36, okay. In this case, you would leave it like this, okay. So, x is less than 36. Let's go over to 4. So 4 says 17 times s. Okay, well, what does times mean? Well, times, hopefully you guys know this by now, means multiply. Let's just add that on there. Okay, so times means multiply. And by now you should know that when you have a coefficient, which is your number, and a variable, which is your s, when they are touching, that means multiply. So it should look like this. 17s. 17 times s. That's 17 times s. That means multiply. Now you might see it another way, like here on number 5, where it's b is multiplied by 5. It might say it like this, but you would still write 5b. Because anytime they're multiplied, they're touching. Your coefficient and your variable are touching. Okay, don't forget that. We'll skip number 6. How about number 7? It says 64 plus k. Okay, well, let's put our variable first, and let's see what plus means. Well, there's plus right there, so that means we're going to be adding. So plus 64. All right. You can just go through and keep doing each one. They're pretty simple. Let's go down here. What is the product? of 82 and G? What is the product of 82 and G? Well, what does product mean? Product means multiply. So when you have 82 and G, multiply means touching. So there you go. What is the difference? What does difference mean between N and 7? Well, difference is subtraction, so it would be N minus 7. I'm just trying to see if there's any other ones we might look at. Okay, let's look at number 20. It says these are going to be some word problems you might see every once in a while and that you might have to match an expression to. So let's take a look. Carolyn made T batches of 12 cookies. How many cookies did she make? Well, she made T batches of 12 cookies. So how many did she make? In this case, it would be 12T. A jar holds N ounces of jam. How many jars are needed for 200 ounces of jam? So again, we're looking at 200 N. Alright, this should help you out, guys. Just keep practicing on this. There's also a practice on Khan Academy. So once you finish this, you can move on to that. But let's go ahead and take our writing expressions. We're going to move it to the side, and we're going to talk a little bit about distributive property. If you notice, we have 4 different properties. We have commutative, associative, distributive, and identity. Most of the time, your main property you're going to deal with is distributive. So that's the one we're going to focus on. But you have all of these for any future reference that you might need, and you need to go over. So with distributive property, it's just a multiplication fact that can be broken up into the sum of 2 other multiplication facts. So let's look at it. So here, for example, you have 23. Well, to get 23, you do what? 20 plus 3. And then times 2. Well, that's all this is. But in our case, we're going to take, most of the time you're going to be using variables. You're going to be using expressions to build bigger expressions. So you might have something like 2 times 3 plus x, okay? And what this is saying, if you look, they took this 2 and they multiplied it by the 20, and they took the 2 and multiplied it by the 3. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. But instead of separating it like that, it's going to be, 2 times 3. So 2 times 3, right? Plus 2 times x. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times x. Remember, when you have a variable and a number touching, it's 2x. So that's how you would do your distributive property. Another way you might see it is, you might see it just numbers only. You might see it with just numbers or anything like this. So it might be 3, 5, plus 6. Or you might have a variable in there. And when that happens, you're just, like I said, you're just breaking it up. It's 3 times 5, and then plus 3 times 6. That would be 15 plus 18, and then you would just add those together to get your final answer, which would give us 33. Okay? So you might see it like that also. Distributive property is something you will use a lot with expressions and equations. So please make sure you understand this. There's also some practice problems on there for that also. One last thing I want to show you about is evaluating expressions. So we're going to go back on this paper real quick. And when we evaluate expression, we just take, they might tell us what the number is, or what the variable represents, and we have to evaluate it, which means we have to put it where the variable is and get an answer. So, for example, 18 minus x, okay? So if I have 18 minus x, and I know x equals 3, that means I'm going to take x and I'm going to replace it with 3. So like this. So it would be 18 minus 3. Well, what's 18 minus 3? correct. It is 15. So, that's one way. Same thing here. Most of the time it'll already be in a problem, so you might have it like this. 2x plus 3, and then they will say x equals 2, okay? And when this happens, when you replace it, you're going to take your 2 and you're going to replace it because x equals 2. That means x is 2. So anywhere you see an x, you place a 2 there. So here, it would be replaced with 2 times, because remember when they touch like that, that means multiply, 2 plus 3. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Okay? That is called evaluating. This is evaluating an expression. Sorry, I just went blank. You would be evaluating an expression or an equation, and you might do that a lot. So make sure that you know how to do each one of these. If you have any questions, please stop. Get with one of the math teachers. We will definitely help you. Practice a lot before you continue. These are very, very important concepts. Have a great day.